In this video, we're going to continue our discussion on monopolistic competition by talking about something very important to monopolistic competition, and that is advertising. So we're going to be looking at the economics of advertising. I'm going to go ahead and warn you, most of the stuff I'm just going to say. I'm not going to write much on the board in this video, but we're going to be talking about the economics of advertising. All right, so first we're going to talk about kind of why we're talking about it in this chapter and not in the chapter on perfect competition or monopoly. And the reason for that is because firms in perfect competition and monopoly don't really advertise that often, right? At least they don't tend to. It doesn't say, not saying it doesn't ever happen, but it is rare, right? So let's first look at perfect competition. So again, firms in perfect competition, they are not going to advertise often, and it makes sense when you think about it. If you're selling an undifferentiated product, then when you advertise for that product, you are not just advertising for your product, you're advertising for everyone's product, right? If I grow wheat and I want to, I think people aren't buying enough wheat, and I think I could increase the sale of wheat by advertising. Well, when I do that, I'm not just advertising my wheat that I'm growing. I'm advertising wheat that everybody has grown. So I'm not going to get the full benefit of that advertising, right? Not every person that sees that ad says, hey, you know what, I should go buy more wheat. Or, I guess you don't really buy wheat as a consumer. It's like flour, I guess. Regardless, all right? They're not going to automatically go and buy your wheat, all right? They're not going to increase. You're not going to get all of the return from that, all right? Some of them are going to buy your wheat. Statistically, that would almost definitely happen. But the vast majority would likely buy wheat from somebody else, right? Because it's not it's no different from yours, so there's no reason to go seek this individual out and buy theirs specifically. So because firms in perfect competition, right, aren't going to get the full benefit, right? They're going to pay the full cost of advertising. They're going to get a small amount of the benefit, but a lot of it's going to get spread out to other producers. There's really no incentive, or at least very little incentive, to advertise. Now, there are some famous examples of kind of these undifferentiated products getting advertised and being advertised all together and not for a specific brand. Some famous examples would be kind of the Got Milk ad campaign trying to boost milk consumption. And also milk has those quite often, usually targeted more to children, I think. I might be wrong about that, but I remember seeing them when I was, going through school. Regardless, another one is pork. It's the other white meat, right? And that was for the pork industry, of course. So why are there some exceptions, right? And the reason for that is because those ad campaigns came from the Agricultural Marketing Service, which is a division of the USDA, right? The U.S. Department of Agriculture there. We got it eventually, right? And these ads are funded through a tax on firms in those industries, right? So firms in the milk producing industry get taxed, firms in the pork producing industry get taxed, and that tax money goes into a budget for the Agricultural Marketing Service, right? The reason that is a thing is because there is no incentive to advertise, right? Individually. So here the government's kind of forcing them to advertise. Next, we're going to talk about monopolies. So again, just like with firms in perfect competition, monopolists are not going to advertise very much. The reason for this is because they don't have any competition. They don't have to lure other consumers away from other firms because there are no other firms. The book gives the example of the United States Postal Service. All right, very rarely do they advertise for first-class mail. So they don't advertise for letter delivery. But they do sometimes advertise for parcel delivery, because they are the only ones that are allowed to carry first-class mail. Right? They have a monopoly on first-class mail. No other delivery service can handle that. Right? They're legally not allowed to. But that's not true of parcels, right? Packages. So the United States Postal Service is competing with UPS, they're competing with FedEx, DHL, so on and so forth. So in the market where they are having to compete, you do see that advertising. All right, next let's look at the uses of advertising, or how firms use advertising. So here we have the four uses of advertising that we're going to focus on in this video. The first three are really geared towards why firms advertise to us. And the last one is more how they use advertising, not necessarily the firm advertising, but accepting ads. All right, we're gonna talk about that a little bit more in a second. All right, so information, right? Ads are informative. They give out information. They can be used as a signal or for signaling. They can actually be used to change consumer tastes, and they can reduce prices. So we're just going to go through these one by one. So when we're talking about information, right, how ads are used or advertising is used for information, the advertising is going to give information about price, quality, and availability. All right, we're going to start with this idea of availability. This one's probably the simplest, right? If you don't know a product exists, you can't buy it. So one way that advertising is used is just to tell people, hey, this is available. You know, whether it's a new product or what just came to mind was, you know, those car commercials where they're always like, we've got brand new 2020 Chevy Silverados on the lot, you know, saying, hey, these goods are here in this location, they are available, come and get them, right? Or again, probably also just a new product being released. When the new iPhone comes out, they're gonna be putting out ads saying, hey, it's here, come get it, right? But it also gives information on price, right? Firms are competing with each other in this market, right? This monopolistic competition. They're not only competing with each other in terms of what features that their products are. They're not just trying to find the right match of, you know, special features in their good that's going to be most appealing to consumers. They're also going to be competing in price. And studies have found that when firms are allowed to advertise their price, that prices get lower. Right? It's kind of crazy to think that firms are not allowed to offer, right, or advertise their price, but that is the case. It has been the case in some locations. Probably, I would imagine, maybe it still is. Your book references a time when, in some states, optometrists were not allowed to advertise their price, and that allowed some economists to look at the differences in prices for the services of an optometrist in states where advertising was allowed and where it wasn't, and they found that prices were lower in the states where firms were allowed to advertise their price, right? Kind of showing them, say, hey, here's my price. The other firms say, oh, their price is that low, we're gonna have to drop ours, right? Also because consumers are gonna be able to see the prices before they walk in, and they're gonna choose, or at least they're more likely to choose the one with the lower price, you know, all else equal. So, all right, prices, advertising of prices can help lower prices. And this was found in other industries as well. All right, advertising also promotes messages of quality, right? Saying this is a quality good. And it also promotes or encourages other firms to meet those quality standards, right? So my silly little example here is toilet paper was not advertised as splinter-free until 1935, right? Now I would argue that splinter-free toilet paper is pretty standard, right? You don't even think about it. They don't advertise it as splinter-free anymore because who would buy splintered toilet paper? But that probably also encouraged other toilet paper manufacturers to get the splinters out of their toilet paper, right? Especially as the cost of splinter-free toilet paper drew closer to the cost of non-splinter-free toilet paper, right? That choice of paying a couple extra cents more for a roll probably was easier when you were faced with, I could get a splinter, I could not get a splinter. So again, it's going to promote those things that we want to see, right? It's going to promote firms getting and reaching those quality standards. All right, now signaling. All right, this one going to keep this one pretty short. Firms may use signaling or may use advertising to signal that they believe their product is going to be a hit. Right. So probably the best illustration of this would be in kind of film. If a studio thinks the movie is going to be a really big hit, they might pour a bunch of money into the marketing of that in order to increase, their sales, as they already know it's going to be good. So by increasing that marketing, making more people aware of it, more people are going to go see it, going to get word of mouth going, is going to be better for the film. Is the idea. Right? If you have a movie that you think is going to bomb, that's not going to do very well, then you're less likely to spend a lot on the advertising, right? It's already a sunk cost you've paid to make the movie, or as much of the movie as you've made. If you don't think it's going to go well, you're not going to put a bunch more money into it, advertising wise, right? So for example, just this one example kind of on the side of signaling, but when a recent hit, at least recent as of the filming of this, Avengers Endgame, right? Probably one of the biggest movies in the last couple of years. Marvel or Disney, I guess both of them really, spent $200 million on marketing, right? Most people that were interested in Endgame, that were going to go see it, were probably going to go see it anyways. At least, well, I guess that's a biased opinion because I was going to go see it regardless, but they probably didn't have to spend $200 million on advertising, and the movie would have done just fine. But as a signal saying, hey, we think this is going to be a really big hit, right? We're going to put, every other ad on TV is going to be for Endgame, right? Signaling saying, hey, this is going to be something you as the consumer, you want to see this because look at how hard we're pushing it. Obviously, it's got to be really good, or we wouldn't be doing this. It's kind of the idea behind signal. All right, now changing taste. This one's pretty interesting. So some ads aren't going to provide any information about the product being sold, and so it's kind of hard to say, well, not really informative, it's not really signaling, so what is it, right? A lot of the time, these ads are designed to be changing people's taste. So I got a couple of examples of this. The first one, I want to compare two kind of firms, about 30 years apart or so, doing kind of the same thing. The first is, there is a very well-known Apple ad. I think it was shown first during a Super Bowl, the Super Bowl of that year. I might be wrong about that, but it's the Mac the Macintosh 1984 ad. I'll briefly describe it, and I'll also see if I can put a link to a YouTube video below these as well. All right, but the idea of the ad is there are a bunch of people dressed in gray clothing, kind of jumpsuit kind of things. They're all very gray looking, very sad. There's a big face on a TV screen, kind of talking to them, and then a woman runs up and throws a sledgehammer through the screen while music is playing. All right, and then at the very end it says a little something about like telling you that it's an Apple ad, but really not much more. It doesn't really tell you anything about it's for a computer, I believe. It was 1984, so probably they didn't really have anything other than just computers, and that's what Macintoshes are, regardless. So the ad doesn't really tell you anything about this computer, right? All it's trying to do is kind of give you this idea of, if you get one of these computers, you're not going to be one of these drones, these mindless drones just kind of following in everybody else's footsteps. Be unique, be special, buy a Macintosh computer. That's kind of the idea that comes through it, right? Break away from the herd. All right, so that's Apple. All right, cut to 30 plus years from then, Android started releasing ads, and kind of the tagline of this is "Be together, not the same." And they have one ad where they're playing a Roger Miller song. It's one of the ones from the Disney Robin Hood movie, and there are kind of the unlikely animal pairs, right? A chimpanzee with a donkey, or I don't think that's one of them, but it's stuff like that, right? Cats with dogs, ducks and horses, those general types of things, right? And again, the idea is be together, not the same. Pushing the idea that if you buy a phone that's an Android, you're not going to be like everybody else, right? Everybody else has an iPhone, they're all the same, right? If you buy an Android, there are going to be differences, right? All Android phones are not exactly the same, all right? Or at least they don't have to be. So be together, right? Hang out, right? But don't be the same as everyone else, all right? So two kind of similar messages, right? Two ads, 30-ish years apart, maybe more, that are kind of given the same message. All right, I'll also see if I can kind of get a good version of that's going to show that I can put under the video and under these videos in Blackboard. All right, the last one and kind of the beefier of these is CocaCola. So CocaCola often does not have any information about their product in their ads because they don't need to. They're Coca-Cola. If you don't know what Coca-Cola is, then you're either in real bad trouble or you've been actively avoiding Coca-Cola. So maybe you're not their target audience. But what Coca-Cola is doing with those ads a lot of the time is they are trying to push the idea that Coke is something kind of special, something different, right? Coke is not Pepsi. They're not the same thing. They want to increase that differentiation between their product and other products like Coke or any other cola, right? If they can do that, they're going to make the demand for Coke more inelastic, right? People say, well, these aren't substitutes, right? These aren't the same thing. So increasing that kind of the inelasticity of demand, making it more elastic, right? And we know that the more inelastic demand is, the higher a markup you can get, right? That's true for the monopolist. That's going to be true for monopolistic competition, right? If you have more inelastic demand, you can charge a higher price, right? So how they do this, again, they have these ads, right? And they want to associate kind of, your memories, Coke with memories, right? So they want you thinking, I was having a Coke when I don't know, sports team won the big game, right? So on and so forth, right? To make you associate positive emotions with the brand, right? Ultimately, that's what they want. They want you to have positive emotions associated with the brand, right? So some scientists, all right, or I'm assuming they're scientists, it sounds scientific, but there was a study conducted where participants were given 2 glasses of Coke. One was labeled as being Coke, the other one was unlabeled, right? Participants then tasted both of them, and participants reported a higher level of enjoyment for the labeled glass, right? When they knew it was Coke, they enjoyed it more. They were also hooked up to brain scanners, and the brain scans picked up activation of the memory portion of the brain, right, while they consumed the labeled glass, right, the beverage in the labeled glass. So not only, right, it's not just that people like Coke, that they find its taste appealing, but they actually have positive emotions that when they know they're drinking a Coke, right, that's going to kind of activate some memories, right, that probably are more positive if they're reporting higher levels of enjoyment, right? This group then tried to replicate the study using Pepsi, but they did not get the same results, right? So having people drink out of, a labeled Pepsi glass and an unlabeled, right, did not give the same results as when drinking Coke. So, right, Coke had successfully kind of integrated their product into the consciousness of consumers. All right, so there it's literally trying to change tastes. All right, now the last one, reducing price. Again, this isn't necessarily, somebody advertising their own product, but advertising is used to lower the price of products. One example, just a simple one, right? Newspapers. If newspapers didn't have ads in them, they would be more expensive, right? So the subscription cost of the newspaper would be higher if newspapers didn't have advertisements in them. The same would likely be true of movie tickets. If they didn't have the ads in them, probably be more expensive. I don't know that one for sure, so don't quote me on that. But newspapers, definitely, right? So by having those advertisements, newspapers are able to reduce the price they charge for their good, and they're probably able to sell more of it as a result. Right, there are also things like Facebook and Google and a bunch of other websites, right? That are free, right? The price is reduced to 0 because of advertising, and selling your data to advertisers. But advertising is still definitely in there, right? That's why YouTube is free. That's why a lot of stuff is free. Broadcast television, again, free because of advertising. So by advertising, they can reduce the price of those goods. All right, so that is it for this chapter on monopolistic competition. Yep, I think that's it. All right, I will see you guys in the next video.